I have to confess to being an admirer of the walled gardens of the UK and of Europe. My thought is that these gardens were the pinnacle of the kitchen garden. Created, of course, by people that had massive amounts of wealth and to whom money was no object. They were, however, created with the purpose of producing food at a time when, if you think about it, there was no other option but to grow it. There was no supermarket to run off to. If your crop failed, or if a pest came in and consumed the food that you were growing, you had a risk of running short of food or even maybe starving. So it was absolutely essential to protect your garden, both from the predators that were outside and also, more importantly, from the elements. And I think it's this ability of the walled garden to create a microclimate that really makes it so fantastic. Today I'm back here to try and complete my peasant's version, or poor man's version, of such a wall or fence, whatever you like to call it. I don't care whether you call it a fence or a wall. My corrugated iron version, of course, doesn't look nearly as good. However, it's a lot cheaper and a lot faster, but it does have the same functions that the walled gardens of that time did. It will protect my crops, and it will also create a better climate because it will break the wind and create sun traps so that there's better temperatures. Now, I did some work on this gate, which is the final stage, a couple of weeks ago, and I'll let you have a look at that. We're back here today to try and put this gate in. I built this wooden frame a few days ago in the shed when it was hot, in the shade. It's basically fence rails screwed together with some batten screws. It's fairly rough, but that's the nice thing with fencing. It'll forgive you if you're fairly rough. This gate isn't going to be opened very frequently, so it doesn't have to be excessively strong. If it was a gate that was being used all the time, I'd be building a steel frame. But being a gate that's probably only going to be opened once a year, this wooden frame is fine. So what I have to do today is put some hinges here where Samuel is, and I'll put some pad bolts the other end. Then I will come and dig along the base where I'll put a concrete strip for the iron to seal a gate, because the major issue with a gate like this is the base seal. You don't want it as a place where snakes, etc. can find their way under. So first, the hinges. Now that the frame of the gate is in place, I can dig a trench along the bottom to fill with concrete. The concept will be that once the concrete is in and levelled off, trying to get this as level as I can, I then can bring the iron down on top of that, and it will prevent things digging underneath. Because I can't put it into the ground like I've done in the rest of the fence, this naturally being a gate and going to be opened. The final step in this process of putting this gate in is to put the iron on it. Now, the concrete is nicely set and I've removed the makeshift formwork I had, so that'll give me a good firm base that things can't dig under. Now, I'm using, just because it's something I have, a couple of pieces of flashing to actually space the iron, which I'm going to sit on here, give it that little bit of gap at the bottom so that it hopefully should swing, but not enough gap that anything that I don't want coming in, for example a snake, can get under. The process here to put this iron on is basically the same as I used for putting the actual fence up, and that is to screw to the rails, and I will mark here the centers so that I can see where to screw. First sheet I'm fitting with a very small overlap. The concept here is that when the gate is closed, this iron will fit up and you really won't notice that there's even a gate here on the outside, and it should be tight enough when it's sealed up properly that nothing can climb it. Well, there's no question that that was the most difficult sheet to put on. The main issue here that I'm working with is to try and get as small a gap between the two sheets where the hinge is. There has to be a gap here because this is where the gate is going to hopefully open, and I don't really want something that a possum could climb up. So I've put it as tight as I can. I'm hoping it's going to be enough. Whether it is, really I don't know. Maybe something could climb it. On most of my gates I've hinged them in, and this has meant that I've actually put a flashing, a right angle flashing on these so that it is nice smooth tin and they wouldn't be able to climb. If I have a problem here, I would be able to do that same type of thing. I would possibly be able to fit a couple of pieces of flashing in here like this. I'd probably want a little bit larger than this, but that would create a very difficult thing to climb, but it would still be able to open okay. However, I'm trying to avoid that expense, and I'm hoping that this will work. I think certainly a rat would climb up here, or a mouse, but I doubt a possum would be able to support its weight, and these edges are reasonably sharp, so not exactly a comfortable thing to hold on to. So now it's time for the moment of truth. Will the gate open? This gate is not designed to be opened from the outside. It's designed to be open from the inside and locks from the inside, but let's see how we go. There's a little bit of sag because it's only a timber frame and there's quite a lot of weight on it. There's a little sag that's pulling it down, and so I have to actually give it a little lift. But I'm quite happy with that. A little lift, closes up nicely, and that means at the base here it's really tight, and it's very unlikely that anything other than an ant is going to fit under it. Now on the inside here I've just put a couple of gate latches that are actually stainless steel, so hopefully they will work when I come along to use them in a year's time, because this gate probably will only get opened around about once a year. So as I say, not high use, but you want it to work when you actually come to do it. These latches I've just drilled into the post, and holds quite nicely, gives it some support. I've done it top and bottom because I don't want the wind blowing it out, and that should be really quite good. Well, that's that gate complete. Now the old saying is that good fences create good neighbours. I know most people think in terms of urban environments and people being their neighbours. However, it also works for wildlife and also livestock. If you keep goats and have a vegetable garden, your goats will be much better neighbours if you have a good fence. And the same is here, that with possums and wildlife like that will trouble my garden, I'm a much better neighbour for them because of this fence, and they are much better neighbours to me. So I really do strongly recommend building good fences. Whether this is your choice or something else, it's entirely up to you, but I think a good fence is a really good investment. But I've closed this gate, and that means I'm locked in here now. I need to find another way out, so I've got to go and open another gate into this fence. Because I intend to grow possibly vegetables, certainly some fruit trees in this area, as well as have the hens in here, I need regular access from the house as a normal walking gate. So I'm going to open this fence here and put a normal gate in that will just be around about 3 feet wide, or 900. So I've got to get some of this soil out of the road and unscrew it. I'm probably going to have to cut these panels to the right width. I've already put a post in preparation on the other side. The only reason I'm prepared to use a diamond blade on the angle grinder to cut these panels out of the way is because we've now had some rain. We've had about an inch or over an inch of rain actually only a short time ago, with more expected. The soil is quite damp here now, and I'm also within close reach of a hose. I wouldn't be doing this or taking this risk if I thought there was any danger of fire in doing this. In dry weather like we've been having, you really have to be careful with these things because of the sparks that come away can really easily create a fire. Before cutting these out of the way, I first need to screw the rails to my new post here, and then once they're screwed on, I'm able to cut these rails off. A reciprocating saw is a really easy tool to cut through this type of thing and open it up. Now I have an opening in the fence, but before I can actually put the gate in, I need to remove this section of wire. Now this wire that I have around the top of my fence is only here to actually keep my dog in. The dog is fantastic at jumping, and he would go over this fence in a flash of lightning without this wire. So I will have to put the gate quite high to stop him jumping in, because if he got in there he would get rid of the hens. That would be a disaster. So I have to put a piece up here and cut this wire and bring it back, and then we'll be ready to actually put the gate in. So now that that's out of the road, it's time to actually put this gate frame in. Now what I have again is a very rough wooden frame made out of the fence rails. I've used these type of frames before and found that with a sheet of iron on them, screwed on them, they do last quite well. Putting these hinges on, but I'm going to do them the opposite to the way you'd normally do them. You'd normally put this, say, into the post and run the strap along the gate, but because I want to line up with the rails out here, I'm actually going to put this strap piece up into the fence rail and the other onto the gate. The reason being, otherwise I'd be screwing into the end grain of this rail, which wouldn't be very strong. I really should have bought a double strap hinge, but I didn't, so I'll utilise it the other way. When using these, I usually scrap the shop screws, which are only a 1-inch screw, for a much longer treated pine screw. This is a 50mm or a 2-inch screw, which will go well into the timber and give a good hold. I'm going to fit the latch on the top of this rail, and that way it will be possible potentially to reach over and open it from the inside, or close it from the inside if necessary. If I put it down here, it'd be much harder to reach. I've done this before and found it works quite well. I just need to drill a hole in here now to fit that in, and I'll be ready then to put a sheet of iron on it. So that's this rather rugged gate in place. It will work to give me access through here. This gate, of course, is not snake proof. It doesn't have to be, because the outer fence is what I'm relying on for that. This gate simply has to be dog and hen proof. As long as the hens don't get out, except when I want them to, and the dog doesn't get in here when there's hens in here, everyone will be happy and good neighbours. And I can, though it's not that easy, I can actually close it from the inside as well as the other side. Now there's one more job for me to do before I call it a day and pack up, and that's to open up the fence into my existing chook pen and let the hens come in here. They're going to be really happy in here for the next few days, having a picnic.